maybe sign on to international human rights and disarmament treaties, join the International Criminal Court, pursue the enforcement of the rule of law, not special tribunals by each side against the other side. This is not the rule of law. This is victor's justice without any victor.
Hi everyone, this is Veronica Kirilenko of the New American Magazine, and we're here in Washington, D.C. attending the Rage Against the War Machine rally. And here with us today we have Mr. David Swanson. David, it's great to see you. What brought you here?
The risk of nuclear apocalypse and the incredible damage around the world and in Europe being done by this war in Ukraine. I'm here to oppose any war anybody's willing to oppose, in this case the war in Ukraine. But there are demands here of this rally to abolish NATO, to abolish the CIA, to defund the militaries. I mean, these are major steps toward the world we need to survive.
Why would you want to disband NATO at this point in time? Because our European allies are probably not feeling safe right now with everything that Russia is doing in Ukraine.
Yeah, they're not feeling safe because there's a war in Ukraine that could be ended and long since could have been ended, and which the expansion of NATO contributed a great deal, predictably and knowingly, to creating. So it's not new that I want to disband NATO. NATO should never have existed in the first place. At the very least, should have been disbanded when the Warsaw Pact was disbanded, but better late than never. When you have a war created by the hostility and the expansion and the militarization of Eastern Europe, start scaling that back. And when you've broken so many promises and openly admitted that previous treaties were pretenses, the only thing that's going to be believable in negotiations is demonstrable steps. Taking weapons out of Poland or Romania, taking countries out of NATO, not adding new nations into NATO. This is what's needed if you're going to negotiate peace.
But it wasn't us who fired the first shots, it was Russians who did.
Well, I don't know who us is. I'm an individual who identifies with every person on Earth. I assume you're speaking as the Pentagon spokeswoman when you say us. But for me, the first shot, of course, you could date back to the coup in 2014 or before. You certainly want to look at the 8 years of violence in Donbass. And of course, you want to look at the horrific invasion just about a year ago now by Russia. But blame who you want, and but as long as you got the facts straight, which means there's plenty of blame on all sides. There's nobody with a clean record here.
Sir, how do we negotiate? How would you contribute to the peace in Europe right now? What would be the practical steps that you would recommend the administration to take to facilitate peace talks?
Maybe join a rules-based order. Maybe sign on to international human rights and disarmament treaties, join the International Criminal Court, pursue the enforcement of the rule of law, not special tribunals by each side against the other side. This is not the rule of law. This is victor's justice without any victor, because there isn't any victory in sight for either side. There's a growing risk of nuclear apocalypse. So start credible steps toward demilitarization and negotiate a ceasefire and negotiate a sustainable peace, which means letting the people decide in Crimea, in the Donbass. Essentially, the agreement that was had before the war is what's needed to get at a sustainable peace.
Yeah, let's talk about that. I know that you're head of the international movement World Beyond War. Please tell us about that and about the work that you do to actually promote this agenda.
World Beyond War, which has a website, worldbeyondwar.org, is a global organization of chapters and members that does educational work and activist work, nonviolent activist work, toward the abolition of war, toward making peace, toward demilitarization, toward defunding the militaries. And education is a huge part of it because a lot of people don't know what's going on. People in the United States have no idea the role their country plays. They think it's only Ukraine that wants the war to continue, that the United States has been trying to end the war, and of course it hasn't. They don't know that the United States, and in second place Russia, are the big weapons dealers to the rest of the world, dictatorships around the globe. They don't know that these two countries are the ones that veto overwhelmingly in the UN Security Council, that these two countries stand outside more important treaties than any other significant countries, that these two countries have most of the nuclear weapons on Earth. They think that the United States is somehow the policeman of the world. In fact, it's exactly the opposite of that.
Yeah, by the way, speaking about the nuclear weapons, you know that once Ukraine possessed the third largest nuclear arsenal on Earth, but it gave it up in exchange to the promise of security. And the United States, the Great Britain, and Russia agreed to protect Ukraine in case anything happens to it. Well, Russia clearly violated this agreement. Why should we?
Of course, and this is the problem that people who profit from nuclear weapons or have been trained to believe in nuclear weapons will tell you that if Libya or Ukraine gives up these things, they will be attacked, so we need nuclear weapons everywhere. But of course, there are countless countries that have given up nuclear weapons or refrained from acquiring nuclear weapons who have not been attacked, and were it not for putting nuclear weapon-capable missile bases near the border of Russia, you wouldn't have developed this sort of hostility, right? And the risk is very clear that we have been very, very lucky for decades. We have survived numerous near misses, misunderstandings, technical failures, flocks of geese, and misread radar. We won't survive keeping the nuclear weapons around, so we have to get rid of them.
True. Sir, what's the best way to follow you and your work? Please tell us.
worldbeyondwar.org, davidswanson.org. Thank you very much.
And thank you. Thank you so much for your time, sir.
Of course, thank you.